So around a year after Daniel Craig's final film as James Bond released No Time to Die, Eon and Barbara Broccoli mentioned many times, and it shocked a lot of people, that they were intending on announcing the next James Bond rather soon, and their intention and their plan, which they stated multiple times, was to have a Bond announced within the next year or two. And that shocked a lot of people at first because it felt kind of strange to have this long Daniel Craig tenure come to an end and have a Bond so soon, and it felt like it could have been a bit abrupt from Eon. But you do also have to think about the fact that No Time to Die sat on a shelf for 2 years. Nobody saw that film, and it was sat on a shelf collecting dust due to the lockdowns and everything that happened around that time. So it was meant to release in 2019. Originally it came out more than 2 years later in 2021. So for Eon back then to announce a Bond, you've got to think they were 2 years ahead of us. But now we're heading into 2025 and we still don't have an official announcement, or it doesn't seem like it's getting any closer to finding out who the next Bond is. At the top of the list, a lot of people probably guessed it, Aaron Taylor-Johnson is still the odds-on favourite to become Bond 26. And I wouldn't be miserable if Aaron Taylor-Johnson was announced as Bond. I think there's definitely worse picks. There's a lot of criticism around him, and I get the majority of it. A lot of people say his voice is quite off-putting. He's got a higher tone voice. I think somebody actually commented on a video saying he sounds like David Beckham on Helium. And once you hear that, you can't really listen to him in the same way. So I do understand some of the criticism. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be jumping up and down and clapping if Aaron Taylor-Johnson was announced tomorrow. But I think there are worse picks. Second on the list, we have Theo James, most notably from the Gentleman series directed by Guy Ritchie, and he was also a big role in the Divergent franchise. Paul Mescal is at number 3, most recently the star of Gladiator 2. This guy's probably going to go on to become a big Hollywood star, I would imagine, but the thought of him as Bond, just, not for me. Callum Turner, number 4, he's sort of a fairly unknown guy. He's been in Masters of the Air on Apple TV fairly recently. Again, a lot of these actors are in the same sort of ballpark. Late 20s, early 30s, they've been in a few series or they've been on films that are on streaming services. So a lot of just regular general people won't know these actors which are sort of attached to the next Bond film. A lot of you may know faces, but I don't think you'll know names that well, because at least I didn't. And next on this list we have James Norton, and I actually had to Google this guy, and whilst I did recognise his face, just no, absolutely not. I mean, he's a British actor who's done a lot of British TV things, but James Bond? Nah, I'm alright. And then we have Jack Lowden, who, again, I had to Google this guy, but I did recognise him from Dunkirk. He played a fairly small role in that film, and he's been in a few other British television and BBC things, so I can't see this happening. Reggie Jean Page is the next name on the list, and a lot of people did think this was the odds-on favourite, the frontrunner, around 2 to 3 years ago now, and I did actually expect this to be very likely. I thought Reggie Jean Page was pretty much the odds-on favourite a few years back, and I still think it could happen. Again, there's been a lot of talk around the colour of the next James Bond. Are Eon going to pick a black guy? And it's something that we've heard a lot of. Idris Elba, obviously I think Idris Elba, if you would have casted him after Spectre in 2015, I think he would have been a great pick. I can see him, I think he's got the chops and the charisma and the looks to be James Bond. But, Idris Elba, I think he is truly past. That wave has passed, and I don't think he has any chance of becoming Bond now. He's too old. Eon and Barbara Broccoli many times have mentioned that Bond is going to be a guy in his 30s. Damson Idris is the next name, not Idris Elba, Damson Idris, and he's the star of the upcoming F1 movie with Brad Pitt, and it's directed by Joseph Kosinski, who helmed Top Gun Maverick, which is just one of the best action films of the past decade or so. It's absolutely fantastic. Damson Idris hasn't really been in much recently, and you probably won't know his face, but like I said, he's the star of the upcoming F1 movie, and he'll probably go on to do big things. And now the last 2 names on this list for the bookies and the odds-on favourites are Henry Cavill and Cillian Murphy at the bottom of the list. And I'm just going to say it straight. I think Henry Cavill is the choice that I would want. I think if somebody came up to me and said, pick the next James Bond, and whilst that is very, very unlikely, I would snap the hand off and say, Henry Cavill, and let's sign it quickly, because the guy can act, the guy has the looks, he's just an incredible actor. I thought his portrayal, especially in Man of Steel, of Clark Kent and Superman was absolutely incredible, and you can already imagine him as Bond. He played a great spy in the Guy Ritchie film The Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2016, had Armie Hammer alongside him, and he played a fantastic role. It's a fairly underrated spy film. He was brilliant in that, and is that possibly one of the reasons why Eon are not convinced by Henry Cavill? He's played a spy in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., he's been Superman, he was a villain in the Mission Impossible franchise from the movie Fallout. So is that one of the possible reasons why, they're not convinced by Henry Cavill? Because it does seem strange. He's not really attached to any franchises as of right now. He's been linked to the Marvel Cinematic Universe many, many times, but it doesn't seem like he's attached to a major franchise at the moment. So I do think it is a matter of his age. I believe he's in his early 40s, potentially 41, and is it a little bit of oversaturation that Eon are worried about? If you look at Sean Connery, Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig, they typically didn't come from a huge franchise before they were cast, and many of them had been in fairly well-known films and big box office successful hits, but they weren't really franchise leaders like Henry Cavill. He's carried the DCEU, and he's been a star of many action films over the years, so I think that possibly could be why, but I would still snap someone's hand off for Henry Cavill to be the next Bond. He's a younger looking guy for his age. As strange as that sounds, he looks mid-30s to me. I think he could carry 3-4 Bond films, and he'd be brilliant in the role. Quickly, Cillian Murphy. I've never really found this one to be that convincing. I think he's a very, very good actor. Obviously, his most recent role was Oppenheimer, who was absolutely fantastic in that film, and he won an Oscar for his efforts, but his James Bond, I've never really seen him for me personally, but a lot of people do like the idea of Cillian Murphy. Do I think the next Bond is going to be announced anytime soon? I honestly don't think so. I don't think we're going to have a casting announcement within the first few months of 2025, or we might not even get it until summer or the end of 2025, moving into 2026, because it does seem like things have slowed down considerably, and we're not really hearing any reports or any news of any sort of action or anything happening within the industry regarding the casting of the next Bond. So whilst Aaron Taylor-Johnson does remain the bookies frontrunner and the favourite to be James Bond, it's not all done and the race isn't over yet. So make sure to subscribe if you did enjoy this video. I'm going to be keeping you guys up to date, and I'm going to be sharing any announcements that happen regarding the next James Bond. Make sure to subscribe below, like this video if you enjoyed it, and as always guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.